Maura Murray disappeared on Monday, February 9th, 2004. When a person disappears without a trace, often the most critical information is hidden in their actions and words from the days before they vanished. Maura Murray's last known whereabouts may hold the clues to what happened to her.
19 minutes. That is less time than it takes to watch a sitcom episode, cook a meal, or drive to work. But on February 9th, 2004, 19 minutes was all it took for a 21-year-old nursing student to vanish completely off the face of the earth. There were no tracks in the snow, no signs of a struggle, no digital footprints. At 7:27 p.m., a witness was talking directly to her. By 7:46 p.m., the police arrived, and she was gone. For over 20 years, the investigators have been trying to solve the impossible geometry of this 19-minute void. This is the case of Maura Murray. The setting of this architectural impossibility was Route 112 in Haverhill, New Hampshire. It was a rural, unforgiving stretch of asphalt, hemmed in by a wall of dense, dark New England forest, framed by towering snowbanks, hardened by weeks of midwinter freeze. When Maura's black Saturn sedan failed to navigate the sharp, treacherous curve, known to locals as Weathered Barn Corner, it didn't just slide into a snowbank. It effectively slid off the grid. The impact was violent enough to deploy the front airbags, cutting through the silence of the quiet evening. A nearby resident heard the dull thud of the collision ripple through the freezing air. Minutes later, a local school bus driver, steering his massive vehicle home after finishing his route, spotted the crippled, dark sedan resting awkwardly against the white snowdrift. He pulled over, the heavy diesel engine idling against the cold. Walking toward the vehicle, he spoke face-to-face with the driver. It was Maura. According to his later statements to police, she appeared visually shaken, but she was fully conscious, upright, and not visibly injured. When he asked the question anyone would ask on a dark, desolate mountain road, if she needed help, if he should call the police, Maura refused. She looked him in the eye and claimed she had already contacted roadside assistance. It was a normal response on the surface, but the bus driver knew a chilling truth that Maura either didn't realize or chose to ignore. Cell phone service along this specific mountain pass was completely dead. Uneasy, but unable to force his help upon her, the driver returned to his bus, drove the short distance to his nearby home, and immediately called authorities. At exactly 7:46 p.m., the first police cruiser rolled up to Weathered Barn Corner, its blue and red lights fracturing the pitch black of the New Hampshire woods. The black Saturn was exactly where the bus driver had left it. The headlights were switched off. The interior lights were dark. The airbags hung deflated and empty from the steering column like white ghosts. The driver's side door was locked. The officer stepped up to the window, shining a flashlight into the cabin. The vehicle showed signs of sudden disruption from the crash, but the seat was empty. Maura Murray was gone. Within that 19-minute fracture in time, a living person had evaporated. When investigators eventually gained access to the locked vehicle, they uncovered a scene of chaotic, deeply confusing preparation. Inside, red stains were found, splattered across the ceiling fabric and the interior door panel. It was a visual that initially sent a jolt of panic through responding officers, but forensic testing quickly lowered the stakes. The substance was not blood, but red wine, spilled violently during the impact from an open box found on the seat. Packed alongside her heavy nursing textbooks were neatly folded clothes, toiletries, personal items, and a physical sheet of paper containing printed MapQuest driving directions pointing toward Burlington, Vermont. Maura had been traveling with a definitive destination in mind, but why she was heading toward the mountains of Vermont remained a total mystery to everyone who actually knew her. Because back at the University of Massachusetts Amherst, Maura had spent her final hours systematically tearing down her connection to her daily life. Maura sat at her computer and sent a calculated email to her nursing professors. In it, she stated that she would be absent from classes for a full week due to a sudden tragic death in her family. There had been no death. She then sent a similar message to her workplace, ensuring no one would look for her for days. Security cameras at a local ATM captured her standing alone, withdrawing $280, virtually every single dollar she had to her name. From there, she drove to a liquor store, purchasing a heavy supply of alcohol, including the box of wine later found ruptured in her car. By 4:30 p.m., she had left the campus behind, driving north into the encroaching winter twilight, without leaving a note, without telling her friends, and without alerting her family to understand why a promising 21-year-old student would build a wall of lies and flee into the mountains. Investigators had to look at the crumbling infrastructure of her final days on campus. The pressure had been mounting. On the night of February 5th, while working a routine shift as a campus security desk monitor, Maura suffered a profound emotional breakdown. Her supervisor found her completely unresponsive, staring into space, crying uncontrollably, and repeatedly whispering the words, "My sister." She had to be escorted back to her dorm room. Just 2 nights later, the instability escalated. After attending a late-night gathering, Maura borrowed her father's brand-new vehicle to drive back to her room. In the early morning hours of February 8th, she crashed that car directly into a highway guardrail, causing thousands of dollars in structural damage. Though she escaped legal charges and physical injury, her father had to travel down to campus to help manage the wreckage before heading home that evening. Within 48 hours of destroying her father's car, Maura emptied her bank account and drove directly into the New Hampshire wilderness. The search that followed was massive, frustrating, and ultimately barren. Bloodhounds brought to the crash site managed to strike a scent, tracing it eastbound down Route 112. But exactly 100 yards from where the Saturn hit the snowbank, the dog stopped dead in its tracks. The scent simply vanished in the middle of the road. To veteran trackers, an abrupt end to a canine trail usually means a target stepped inside another vehicle. But the bitter wind, sub-zero temperatures, and passing exhaust from responding emergency vehicles may have simply shredded the scent molecules into nothingness. Ground searchers, state troopers, and helicopters spent days combing the dense forest. High snowbanks can preserve a runner's footprints, but they can also act as a frozen shroud, burying dropped items, hiding deep depressions, and locking secrets away beneath heavy drifts. They found no keys, no cell phone, no footprints leading into the dark wood. For more than 2 decades, the void left behind has been filled by 3 competing theories. The first is that Maura fled into the woods to avoid a police interaction and potential DUI charge, only to succumb to the brutal cold. Hypothermia impairs the human brain rapidly, causing severe confusion and the physiological phenomenon known as paradoxical undressing, where a freezing victim feels hot and burrows deep into brush to hide. Yet 20 years of intense logging, hunting, and targeted searches have failed to produce a single scrap of clothing, a boot, or a bone. The second theory is that she stepped into a vehicle during that 19-minute window and encountered an opportunistic predator. But for a predator to pass by that exact remote curve at the precise moment a young woman stood vulnerable in the dark requires an extraordinary, terrifying alignment of chance. The final theory suggests she successfully pulled off a planned disappearance to start a new life. But in the modern era, a completely clean break requires immense resources. Maura's bank accounts have never been touched. Her social security number has never been run, and her cell phone has never once pinged a single tower since that winter night. In 2019, law enforcement returned to Haverhill with advanced forensic mapping, ground-penetrating radar, and fresh investigative leads. They dug into basement floors of nearby properties and scoured the woodland grid once again. The result was the exact same silence that has answered this case since 2004. Traffic still flows through Weathered Barn Corner. The snow still falls every winter, burying Route 112 in white. And the forest stands as a dark, impenetrable wall at the edge of the asphalt. We are left with a car in a ditch, a brief conversation with a passerby, a 19-minute void, and a young woman who walked into the dark and never walked out. If you want to dive deeper into the mysteries that the world forgot, hit the subscribe button, turn on notifications, and drop a comment below with your theory. Was Maura lost to the woods? Or did she step into the wrong car? Thank you for watching, and we will see you in the next case.